background, this year I had already completed 10 years in Jerevas. That was my first and last job. I had spent already 10 years growing with the airline, and I had my twin boys. Now the challenge was that the boys were preterm. Back in 2010, the policy for maternity was only 3 months, unlike how we have for 6 months. So now imagine my boys coming a month early than they were, so just in 8 months, and with just 3 months managing them, I had to go back to work, and I had a job that I loved. So obviously, I spoke to my department and my set of people who were there in my organization and under my department. They all gave me, a lot of understanding. There was a lot of uh, understanding around what I was going through as a mother, where I had the complications with my boys. I obviously, being a new mother, had no idea how to raise these two little ones together. Eventually, it took a big toll on me, my emotional, my mental, my physical health. So I had to join back because my team kind of, they said, we will help you. Because being in airline, I had an advantage that they could support me was that you could, between 24/7 operation, you could choose the hours of work that you can. That was the maximum they went to support me. I tried that, and eventually I realized I was losing on my health. I even ended up being admitted in a hospital because lack of sleep. So I had put a case and I had requested if I could get 6 months of leave without pay to manage myself to come back, because I didn't want to lose this job that I have worked so hard for, and I was great at it. And eventually, it reached to the level of the head of the department, and it was by the policy. I was told that there's no way we can give you this kind of thing because there's no such policy in the system. And obviously, I made peace with that, and I made a decision to resign. Now, this is where the power or the strength of weak ties comes in. I'm already in my 3 months of notice period, and there happens to be an event where all the entire network of Jet was there. And I met an old leader. I still remember her name, Mrs. Ragini Chopra, and she was the head of our corporate communication. Back in my experience of 10 years, there was a 6 month of period where I had worked under her. I was part of a team where she was heading it. And that was the only time I had spent with her. Obviously, the only connection I had with her is that we both belong to Dehradun. That's the only personal conversation we ever had, totally professional. So I just went up, I saw her, and I said, I will just go and say a goodbye to her because I don't know if I'm going to see her. That was the intention, right? And I went and I just told her that I've resigned, and she just became curious and she started asking me why. And, I gave her the whole background of it, and this happened, and I asked for leaves. But unfortunately, there's no such policy. So I chose to take this break. To my surprise, what is she did? She held my hand. She walked up through that crowd of the party that was happening, took me up to the chairman, and just spoke for me and said, "This girl who has worked for us for so many years, and she's a very bright leader, and we should do something for her." And she had a connect. My department did not have that kind of access to even speak about that policy. She had, and what happened? While I had resigned, while I had already served almost 2.5 months of my notice period, I took my resignation back because I was given those 6 months to manage my emotional and my physical fatigue and everything that I was going personally also. And what would have happened? Obviously, after the 6 months, I ended up going back for my job, spent another 5 years with the organization, just purely because there was a leader who spoke for me, who stood for me when I actually gave up on my own career. And she is the one who spoke for my career. And that is the strength of weak ties. Now, if I bring the concept back that I just shared with you, my department is where we were all together. We were all there was a lot of support, there was a lot of trust, but they had their limitation when you talk in the org chart. They could not really go beyond the policy. However, there is always a set of relationship which always comes from your acquaintance. Like in this case, it came from a leader who I hardly worked, of course, had a smaller relationship. And just because there was a trust between, because we worked together for some time and she believed in me, she did something that I could not have done for myself. And today, obviously, this picture is during those 6 months, and these smiles on me and my boy's face obviously is all goes to the fact of this social capital that was built for me in that moment, obviously. And of course, back then I did not have any language to really say this is social capital. Only when I joined ODCP, of course, I got the concept of social capital, but when I relate back, this is how it comes back to me. So I hope this concept kind of has helped you to understand what are the strength of your weak ties and what is the strength of, we need both. Now we come to the next part of it. So once we've got this concept, there was another concept. Of course, there are many studies. We've only picked up two of these to really get you to understand this. Now, once there are also these types of social capital. So when we talk about a strong and weak ties, they are talking about the strength. What is the depth in my relationship? Whereas the types, they always talk about the role they play in our growth or in our professional life or building that value for us, which is where the three concept that comes in is bonding capital, bridging capital, and your linking capital. Obviously, we'll explain each one of them separately. So I will ask Gopal to kind of go a little deeper on the bonding capital. And of course, these were the social scientists who have worked. Robert Putnam is the one who coined bonding capital and bridging capital. Linking capital is something that came a little later over the years. This is where it takes you not horizontally, but vertically up. We will discuss and we'll explain each one of them.
Thank you, Neetu. So in my case, the first almost 16 years of my career, I spent enormous amount of time, almost seems like a past birth for me now, in expat management and global mobility. And my role was to take care of people coming in, going out of the countries that I was managing. It required me to have extreme amount of knowledge on labor laws, tax laws, immigration laws, compliances, and work with people around the world to understand what is happening in their country and how can we hire people from that country. How can we, if we have to unfortunately let go of people from that country, what is it that we would need to do? But after 16 years of doing the same thing, I felt that there was a reason. There was something that I need to do different to grow. And I had a career conversation with my leader then. And one of the things that the head of HR of that organization told me was that you have built the depth and the expertise that will take you only this far. So, in as many words, what got you here won't take you there. And I needed to do something more beyond. Unfortunately, there were not many roles that were available at that stage within that organization in broader HR roles. So I moved on to another organization, which was a Big Four, spent good couple of years doing the same thing again, but realized that deepening the expertise is not going to help me further. I had to pick up something totally different to be able to know what it is to be able to grow. The last 10 years, which is, I would say, 2013 to 2019, I had spent in a lot of time in developing network, and network meaning investing in relationships with people, not just within the organization, but even outside the organization. Enough for me to be able to find other roles in other organizations just by perhaps having a conversation with them, just by having one round of conversation about what roles that they have, etc. So there was enough trust, there was enough confidence that people had about where they would say, yeah, Gopal is the right person for this kind of a role. There was enough belonging in that connection as well, where people would then, invest into uh, giving me mentoring advices, coaching as and when needed. But I kind of kept hitting a wall where I was talking to the same kind of people that I was talking always, because my network had not changed. And in 2019, I took a plunge into a broader program management role within the organization that I was working, the Big Four organization, of actually setting up a program for freelancers. And it was called a Gig Now platform. This opened doors for me to have conversations on various new ways of working, future of work, new avenues to have interaction about future of work. So new networks like NASSCOM, CII, and HRD, etc., but also started investing into newer circle of relations, which means newer people know me. And I had already also done a certification program from IIM, which was not in HR, it was in a strategy domain. And that also gave me some insights into world of work across HR as well, other than HR as well. 2 years fast forward, when I was thinking about what next in my career, I was chatting with my alumni friend. And I said, I'm looking for my next challenge. And his point was, these days, academia seems to be doing really well. Why are you not considering a role in academia? And I was like, yeah, that's a great idea, but I never thought about it. Where do you think I should start? And he said, look for IIMs. And being in Bangalore, I looked at IIM Bangalore. There wasn't much role that was available that could fit my expertise or my experience. I went to IIM Ahmedabad, looked at the platform, their website. I saw 2 roles there. I applied to both. I got interviewed for one of them. And 2 months into the conversations, it was good enough for both of us to realize that this is where we want to proceed. So they made me an offer for which I had to go and join them in Ahmedabad. Now, why am I sharing this story? It's because at the end of the day, you need to realize how much of investment is needed. If all your capital is going to be in one place, you perhaps may be underexposed, stuck in one world. Are you currently stuck in your world of expertise? Are you stuck? You may have great trust in relationships. You may have great belonging in relationship. You may have fantastic experiences and people to help you out, but there may be limitations to it as well. Now, when I did finally join IIM, it not just stretched my thinking, it also allowed me to create deeper professional capital within the institute, not just within the institute, but also within government, because a lot of work that I was doing was to set up the School of Public Policy, which meant I had to build relationships with people within the state and the central government, within the academia, within the industry, to ensure the academia, industry, and government partnership works really well. Worked on meeting new people across the country, even other geographies like other policy institutions. And what this taught me was that, at the end of the day, bonding capital is all great, but you need to also realize, are you over relying on that? And what is it that you need to do to be able to realize that and take the next step? One story I would like to share is on day 1 of my role in IIM Ahmedabad, I was pulled into a meeting and I was told that they wanted us to review the public grievances process, especially when it comes to giving feedback to the services that we take from government. So, for example, your passport services, your tax services, and if there are any issues that are there, we could suggest. I was no subject matter expert in public policy. I mean, I did not know much. I perhaps, in fact, knew nothing at all when I was applying to that role. But I made it a point, I reached out to a lot of people between the time I was exploring this role till the time I joined to know more about it enough to be able to have that conversation. And when I actually ended up having that conversation, it was fantastic, where there was enough that I could say and I could do to demonstrate the knowledge and gain the confidence that I could get another meeting. And we'll talk about that in a bit. Over to you, Neetu.
Thank you, Gopal. Very nice, really nice. So obviously, we understand that bonding is something where the concept is coming from your strong ties. If you see, it's your strong ties where you have the whole concept of bonding. Moving ahead, this is the next where we come to the bridging part, which is where you connect with different worlds, where you are connecting yourself with different functions, different sectors, and most importantly, not just through work, but also through perspectives and mindsets. So bridging is something where your weak ties actually comes and plays a very important role, which is often something where we don't spend enough time on. Gopal, next. And of course, like I said, the next one, please, Gopal. Yeah, the weak ties obviously matters. And what happens is you're always your acquaintance. So again, we go back to the strength of weak ties, which kind of connects in this role. The goal, what it does, it creates movement for you. It bridges paths, it bridges uh, cross-functional collaborations. It obviously increases knowledge sharing. So weak ties will only work for you if they have been nurtured consistently. So to bring this to from my experience of, I'm sure by now when I explained you the strength of weak ties, you must have thought that I had a great, strong, and weak, a good network inside Jet. But in 2015, when I actually decided to work for myself, I realized I was only in a bubble. Outside that bubble, because 15 years you're inside in an industry, in an organization, you don't know anyone outside. And that is where I had the real reflection that what I had not done over the years is by just focusing only in one sector, which like just Gopal had mentioned. And just to help you how again a weak tie came and created something which opened my doors to many industries. So, and many organizations, I would say. Gopal, next one. So this is just a story when I left 2015, and I had hardly any connection outside. And when you start a training company, obviously you can't be doing only in that. So I was told something, which obviously people I consulted and who were, guiding me, few mentors, they said you need to do a lot of networking. Back then, again, no social capital. The goal was do a lot of networking. What did I do? I started going with my visiting card, going to many, sharing, and I'm printing tons and tons of them, giving them out, and nothing is working because obviously the concept of trust time was missing in this part of the relationship. However, in one of the events or where I met somebody was an old ex-colleague who had left us long back, hardly worked together. And we just meet. Obviously, there is a common bond. There was some common values that we all had developed during our days in Jet. And she was working for Vistara. This was the first year of inception of Vistara. And she just we met a couple of times and she said, why don't you come and meet our management? And that is where Vistara, being a project by Tata's and Singapore Airline, through her, I got the access to meet the management of Vistara. And through that weak tie, what happened is a cross-function team is where I got an access to, which was bridged because of that weak tie. And I spent the next 8 years being a consultant for Vistara while I was doing, and I obviously created programs for them. So what I'm not trying to say here is what I did is again trying to bring the importance. Next, Gopal, is what it does, bridging capitals does for us. It actually moves us across worlds. It opens opportunities that we cannot even think for ourselves outside this current circle. And most importantly, it helps us avoid stagnation inside one bubble. And I think that is where Gopal initially had said about when you shared about your father spending, for such a long time. And now the world has changed where I think a year to 2 year is an average that most people move. So if we see by the sense of it, people's social capital should be developed more as compared to what I would say, some 25 years back, or when we all started our careers. Obviously, there was no social network or anything from that. But still, there are people who there is the depth in the relationship is missing. So again, we want to emphasize here, though we are saying we bridge through weak ties, but there has to be consistent effort to develop these relationships. We need to constantly not be just, so if I was in the airline industry, if I only go and network again for people who are in the airline industry, my bubble will stay smaller. I had to, so this is another thing that I did. I went and started meeting a lot of these MSME groups where, small business organizations, networking groups, where you would meet, you would just talk about the general aspect of running business. We didn't have how startup is such a big concept now. There weren't so many people. But being part of these non-industry groups, what it did, I learned a lot of aspects of running my work, my taxations, what I can do for my marketing, what I can do. And those all skills came from bridging my social capital across different industries than this. And obviously, it has, created so much of value in terms of knowledge, relationships, people I can count on. So that is something we want to highlight here. And the last part, obviously, is the linking part. Bridging is what becomes the next step of bridging is where the linking comes. So we moved horizontally from our bubble to another new bubble. But bridging can always also help you take a leap up and move you to people of authorities, the decision makers. This is where we start seeing actually a value coming. So which I will invite Gopal to kind of enlighten on.
Sure. Thank you, Neetu. And I think before we get to that part, I am reminded of my conversation with Santosh on my podcast, and very interestingly, we were having this conversation about multi-generation, and I'm bringing that conversation again here, right? How are people looking at careers differently today? And if you look at Gen Zs specifically, and I'm picking up on the point that you made about not more than 2.5 years in an organization, you will often see that people are very committed to the work that they're doing, but not so much to the work for the organization that they are doing, right? So the commitment to work remains there. And they do and invest everything that it takes to be able to get better at what they're doing. And a simple example of this, as we may see today across all the social media platforms, is the ability to do collaborations. Platforms have made it easier. For example, if you go to Instagram today, it's all about collabs, right? You do something, you kind of are featuring something, you want to do it with others. All of that happens great. And a simple example of that I would give is the book that I wrote. The moment I put the Instagram post about, the fact that I've written a book, I got bombarded with a lot of people who wanted to do a book review for me. And I said, okay, I didn't know how does it work? And I said, okay, let me give it a try to one person. Of course, he had a small fee for it, but he did a phenomenal job. And now looking at him, there may be others who are very interested to, want to come and do this book review for me as well. So they're very committed to the work that they're doing. But at the same time, they may not be committed to the organization. So it's a very interesting phase that we are going to see going forward in terms of capital and social capital, especially on how and what choices are people making about their expertise and their careers. Where do they bond? Where do they link? Where do they bridge? I think it would be interesting for us to see. Coming back to the story that I was sharing about my first day at IIM, of course, that meeting went really well. There were a lot of ideas that got discussed that day. And I think my 10 years of experience in consulting organizations, both between Deloitte and EY, allowed me to speak sensibly enough for more conversations that could be had. So I got invited to meet the secretary at DARPG, which is Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances, where they wanted to look at what are some of the ways that we as an institute can help them to get better at doing the feedback mechanism. And it was perhaps being there mindfully present and sharing perspectives and accessing some of the experiences that I've had over the last 10 years allowed me entry and access to the most important decision room within the machinery of government, where the choices were made, where actually my credibility of both working for a reputed institution like IIM Ahmedabad, of having worked across EY and Deloitte for 10 years, came handy, and it was enough to build a trust and enough to build credibility because of the brand names that I was associated with. So for someone who's looking from this outside, they may think that, oh, this person got through into this conversation all of a sudden. But no, it was built over time. May not have been in the same context, but at the end of the day, it does play a big role eventually. And how are you using that to get into the meeting rooms or decision rooms? That's a question that we all will need to reflect on. Another story that I would like to definitely share, this was, again, an interesting time, a few months into my role. We were doing a series of policy conversations on how would India look like in 2031, almost 10 years ago. So it was still valid, made sense to talk about a decade later, what would India do? And we had invited some phenomenal speakers. So you may see Mr. Amitabh Kant towards my right, followed by Mr. Rajiv Maharishi, who happened to be the CAG controller, followed by the secretary for Gujarat, followed by another academician, followed by Parmeshwar Nair, who happened to be the CEO of Niti Aayog and the person behind Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, followed by the chairperson for the School of Public Policy and the director of IMA, the then director of IMA. It was so incidental that because I was the vice president and the officer grade professional at IMA, I was asked to go and pick up Mr. Kant from airport. And I went there to the airport, picked him up. While coming to the campus, I was in a different car, he was in a different car, but throughout the day, he observed me, what I was saying, what I was talking. I asked him a question and a couple of them to others during the conclave, and he made me an offer to join him on the way back to the airport. So I was with him in the car and I was talking to him. He asked me about what do I do, what I have done so far, what made me choose this role. And he remained in touch. He remained in touch. I remained in touch. More so, I kept congratulating him on the roles that he did. Of course, he went on to become the G20 Sherpa. So it became very, easier for him to remember me on the day when I had to actually ask him if he would be interested to join me on my podcast to discuss India 2047, to which he kindly agreed. It took a while. It took a few months of, back and forth on getting the dates in order, but he did agree to be on my podcast last year. And that, I would say, is at the end of the day, being able to bring things together using the linking capital in the context. So that's what I would share as part of my story. So over to you, Neetu.
Yes, great. Obviously, now that we have a little concept, through our experiences, that we are in a system of where we would have a lot of strong ties and we also have weak ties. Through bonding, bridging, and linking, we have understood how the value that gets created, and there is a conscious effort that we have to do. But often, what holds us back, because when we did the intention part, and we saw quite a thing where people are saying that we do it only when it's there is time, and then some people are doing it very intentionally, they're actively working on it, and this is where often people feel stuck. So we understand the goal is why we are doing it, then what is stopping us. And often there are many beliefs that we may have built up over the time that restricts us in building our social capital. And we want to just, bring out some of the common. And the first one, obviously, something I have been at a point in time where I had, until, in my years, that my work should speak for itself. This is where, your family values, you were taught this by your parents, that just do good, hard work. and it will talk. Yes, it holds value, but then it kind of made me feel, why do I need to then go and just talk about my work when my work is good? So this is something, the first one, obviously. Some people feel networking feels very transactional. It is like a give and take. Yes, it is a give and take, but the transaction part is what people, kind of enhances in their mind, and it kind of holds them up. The another one that a lot of people have is, I already know enough people. Yes. So if you know a lot of people, then are they supporting you is the question you want to ask, right? Then the next one would be, I will reach out when I need something. Like we came out in the poll as well. A lot of you said this, that we will reach out when we need something. The another one mindset is, I don't want to impose anything. Like, you feel obligated that you may impose yourself by taking somebody else's time. The another one would be, senior people are inaccessible. Yes, like if we really talk about Gopal's example, who would think that, he could have that access? But they are also just human beings. It's just that we build that mindset and that barrier that they may not be inaccessible. In fact, people on the top, like there's so many studies that say they're lonely. They are always looking for, greater conversation, better conversation. But it is again a belief that holds us back when it comes to working on our social capital. So even competence should be enough, which is again a lot of us have kind of thought of and believe in. So these are some of the mindsets that obviously comes around. And what we need to uh, next, Gopal. Yeah. So the what is the effect if we have these mindset? You have an invisible capability. Your work will not travel. Your work will not be talked about in rooms just thinking because you are doing it on your desk. Your work gets unnoticed. You have weak cross-functional movement and obviously low sponsorship when you need it. You don't have to ask, but there, like I shared my example, there are people who will come and sponsor you because you over the time you have built that social capital. So obviously we will help you reflect, because the goal is not where I am today. The goal is to understand that what can I do? Where is the gap that I can fill in from today onwards? So there is a poll, Gopal, the next one.
Yeah. Give me a second. I'll bring up that poll.
So there's a poll that we want to see which kind of beliefs you have been holding, because the most important is to have that awareness of the belief system that has been holding up. Only then we will be able to move ahead.
Here you go. Okay, someone has already responded.
So would really request if you could take this, because this will actually help you think what is that is holding you back, if it has been holding you back. Okay.
Interesting. Senior people are inaccessible.
So we have 18 people who have already responded.
Networking feels transactional. Okay. Very interesting. It's a tie between 2 and 5. The winner is emerging.
Feels transactional.
Networking feels transactional. Okay. My work should speak for itself. Couple of more.
Yeah, 50%
We
has
have
come.
27 people here.
20 have responded already.
10 have responded out of 20. So yeah, I mean, very interesting, right? Networking feels transactional. Senior people are inaccessible, and my work should speak for itself. While I would say networking feels transactional and senior people are inaccessible are somewhere or more or less related, because if you feel the networking is transactional, then perhaps you may also find reasons of oh, I tried to reach out to this person, but this person was not available, or you may feel that this person may be busy. And to which I remember one of the lines that Mr. Nathan, S.V. Nathan, who happened to be the chief talent officer of Deloitte for a long time, when he was on my podcast, he said the the response to these thoughts is ask. Ask the question, ask for time, ask for help. And what is the worst that could happen is that they would say no. Beyond that, there is nothing that you need to worry about. So if there is a way that you can ask, shed your inhibitions about the people being inaccessible or networking feels transactional, and see if you're able to ask, and even if it means people say no, that's okay. My work should speak for itself. That's a topic in itself, and we can talk about it for hours. Personal brand in 2026 is all about how you are able to speak for your own work. It's a very noisy world, unfortunately. There are a lot of people fighting for the same job across competence, across years of experience. So what do you do with that? That's a question that you really need to reflect upon. And with that, let's go back to our slides and
just to add to
Yeah.
the transactional part, I think because we are thinking it's transactional. There is another way which I see it is, why can I not be curious? Why can I not be also contributing to what is happening? Even if, let's say, there is a senior leader, why cannot we nominate or ask or put ourselves out there to contribute something that could support that leader? So I feel and obviously it has to be done not once, it has to be done on a continuous way. So the most easiest way, I think, to question that belief of yours when it says that you're transactional is just think it from a point that why can I not be not my networking could be all about, or building that social capital is all about just being curious to learn, to know what is happening in their area of work. And I think that at least that works for me. This is how I always, kind of see it and approach it. So we'll come to a little bit of a reflection here. The next slide. What I want everyone, obviously there's no Mentimeter here. This belief we have done it. Just a quick map. Now that we've understood bonding is all about your inner circle, these are the people who tell you the truth all the time, who are there for you, who can speak to you. And obviously, bridging is where you are being crossed, you are being able to bridge or build bridges across worlds and functions. And of course, linking is where you are getting an access to the decision makers and people who have different perspectives. So I want you to think and just create this little grid for yourself if you have the pen and paper, and just try and reflect that, think of these at least 2, 3 real names in your world. Who is sitting in your bonding circle? Who is sitting in your bridging circle? Who is there in your linking circle? The kind of frequency that when you are engaging with them. We have so much of the means of communication, obviously, is so much choice there. But who are we? What is the frequency of our interaction with them? And a gap that we want to really think about is, while we're writing this, is that am I over-relying on my bonding? When it comes to bridging, you want to think around something, where is my reach genuinely thin? Who is that person that I'm not connected with? And when it comes to linking, it is all about the patience and the curiosity that you want to, consistency that may be holding you back. That could be the gap. So just a thought, and if you are able to not fill any area where there is a gap, let it be. If you're not getting any name, it is okay, because that gap is not a failure. That gap is actually the goal, because only when you'll know that this part of the bubble of your life, like how I said, there are 3 bubbles, yes. If it is empty, only that reflection will help you think more deeper that who should come and be part of that process, that box. So we'll give you just 2, 3 minutes to just reflect and build this kind of a little map for yourself with your own setup. It could be in your organization. If you are working, if you are doing your own consulting or practice, it could be from that point of view. And Gopal, just one more clicks, please. Just to help you think deeper. Obviously, one more. No. Okay, fine. So bonding are the people who you can really share, who are there, who are standing there for you, who are helping you emotionally. The bonding part is there. Bridging is something cross industry, cross functions, and linking is something who can give you an access to vertically. And while you've done this, if some of you have done this, just think of it, who should be here on this list or you have missed out? And which belief is stopping you from having that person on this list? So we'll take a pause here and would like to hear from, before I go further, anyone who wants to, any reflection that is coming out for anyone while you're thinking from this aspect. And you can unmute if you would like to, or put your thoughts in the chat box. Gopal, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, a lot of names came in. But I think, yeah, periodic reflection has allowed me to keep on the names not getting into rarely. One of the practice or rituals that I have kept following is no matter what, reach out to some of the people, key people, at least once in 6 months, and check in on them. And one of the mantras I follow and I believe in as well is a very powerful question that a 72-year-old faculty member in New York, who happened to be on my podcast twice, asked me, and I met him last year when I was in New York as well, is he would ask me, how is it going? What is happening? And all of that. And he would ask me this question, how can I help you? And I would always wonder, why is he asking that question? You know, that puts too much pressure on me. I asked him one day when I met, why do you ask this question? And he said, I asked this question because I don't know what was your agenda to come here. But if we end up speaking for so many hours and you don't even get to that topic, I would rather preempt that and I will ask you this question as to what can I do to help you? And I've started following that in every conversation, no matter whether I'm talking to someone senior, peer level, junior, how can I help you? And it really opens the conversations. For all you know, the person may be struggling and he needs help. All you know, they want to hear, or they want someone to hear them. And that's what we should probably try to create an opportunity for ourselves and try this out.
So I think in the interest of time, let's move ahead because
Yeah.
we will maybe in the end we will take some reflections. And obviously another thought.
Any comments? Yeah, any comments? We've not heard any.
Yes.
Verbal or written. Okay. Powerful question, connects well with reciprocity concept. Thank you, Mani. Any other questions, thoughts?
So just to kind of take this ahead, some of you may have had the old slide, please, Gopal. Some of you may think now that, okay, I know these set of people. I have got a list of people. It's an aspiration or it's something that you want to develop for yourself. And you know, these are the people who will play a crucial role to bridge or to link you, because I'm assuming bonding is already very strong for a lot of us. And that's the area where we want to spend less time maybe working on. Uh, that's where the concept of 6 degree of separation, which was obviously, somewhere in 1960 created by Stanley Milgram. And his study, obviously, his experiment is also called the small world experiment, where as per him, he said for any two people to be connected, there is never more than six people in between as a chain of people who could connect you. In fact, a lot of us may have in our personal experiences would have also, when we meet we travel, we talk to somebody, some stranger, and there's some common connect. And at the end of the day, we all say, oh, what a small world it is. Yes, we may all have used this word somewhere with somebody while we were trying to interact. And it kind of comes from that concept, obviously, not going deep into that, but think of it, who are those 6 to 5 people in between you and this aspirational person that you have plotted yourself in? And trust me, that's only 5 to 6 people away. And your goal is to see that bridge. How can you reach out to that bridge and you will be able to connect? And it is possible. Yes, it has, obviously, with all the experiences that we have shared from our lives, it has worked wonderfully. And as we apply this, you'll be able to find and you'll be able to reach to that person and obviously you will apply all the elements of what we talked about. So to move to the last part of it, Gopal, would you take it now?
Yeah. So it boils down to this one word, right? We can influence, we can ask, we can probably find access to networks, we can use the social capital, but it all boils down to trust. And there's a beautiful formula that we would want to share on what gets you the trust. Trust is credibility plus reliability plus intimacy on self-orientation. And let's understand what credibility means. It's your ability to use your judgment and expertise. What gets you into the room in that conversation? How have you demonstrated your ability to speak about a particular topic or be knowledgeable in that particular topic? Reliability is how consistent you are. Are you a man or woman of your word? Are you able to follow through on the commitments that you're making? Intimacy is how are you able to make people feel safe? How authentic are you able to be in the conversations? How are you bringing the realness in the conversation? It requires self-orientation. What is my agenda, my need? So there is a reason why credibility, reliability, and intimacy are on the top and self-orientation is on the bottom. It's because my agenda, my need is always below the credibility, reliability, and intimacy. If I have not created credibility, reliability, and intimacy, then my agenda and my need may not really work. And you will not be able to generate trust for yourself, right? And that's what over bonding or bridging or linking, the way it works out is bonding requires intimacy and reliability. Bridging requires credibility and warmth, and linking requires credibility and low self-orientation. So ask yourself, how are you in your relationships across the exercise that we just did in a few minutes ago, creating your trust equation? What are you doing to bring in credibility? What are you doing to bring in the reliability? What are you doing to bring in the intimacy and the self-orientation? Back to you, Neetu.
Yeah, and just to add there one more point, a lot of us have credibility, we have reliability and intimacy as leaders, it often is there. The denominator actually is one area I would say to look more into, because often high self-orientation is why people would not like to have a relationship with you, because they see an agenda coming out. And that is where when we had said that, it has to be a givers first. It has to be somebody where you're going with an intention. So that intention really matters. And trust me, everything can work right for you, but if that self-orientation is not checked, be it in the form of ego or be it in the form of what do I get out of it, will hold you back in building that relationship. And yes, next. And as we close this, it is very important that when you are another great way is when you're part of communities, they will always accelerate your social capital. And I wanted to really, and Gopal, we wanted to really talk about the community that we are part of, this ODCP community that we are. And if you see all the three concepts of bridging, bonding, and linking applies to it. Just let me help you. When we as ODCP people came together, we had a bridging across roles and organization. Gopal and me, we had no connection. But today, after so many years, we both came from totally different industries, and there is a long term, that relationship has. We may not be able to, the value could be only sometimes that I'm just listening to him and he's listening to the challenges I may be facing. Yes. And that itself is a part of giving in the relationship. When we talk about the bonding, when the concept of Kairos as a conversation as a conference came out was purely to build that trust in that bub to where we all having the proximity, and there is, we all had the shared identity and the support that comes in to get that conference together, because that's a conference that is by the alums for the alums, and it builds totally a lot of trust. A lot of great relationships have been built because of Kairos. And obviously there is a linking access, because through this bonding and bridging, obviously there are so many doors that open for so many of us out here, in different formats. So it is something I wanted to talk, that a power of community also is something we can could be a starting point for all of us. And lastly, to just leave you all with some, to close this, Gopal, next, you all are already part of some chain in some part of your, network and wherever. The question is whether you are building relationship that allow you to work, your work to move. And obviously, next, Gopal. And it is most importantly is the kind of conditions that are you creating for yourself, for your work to travel, land, and create an impact while you do that for others. And that's the very important part, because we all stop at the impact part of it. Social capital will never be built until unless we are not doing this. And I would say one should lead that from it should be the starting point from your side. And obviously, as we had, the goal was to help how you can move your work through your relationship. And of course, it was only going to land through trust. And the last 10 minutes, we want to obviously now talk to you guys, take your questions if you have some reflections. Which concept felt most alive? Were you able to connect it to your real life stories? We would love to hear somebody share their own experience where you felt, okay, that was bridging, that was bonding, or that was a weak tie for me, or linking. So please, the floor is open, and we would love to hear your perspective, your stories to share. We just have another 7 minutes to go. Please unmute. Feel free. Okay, any feedback, any reflection? What hit you? What didn't go well with you? Something on that aspect.
Hi Neetu, hi Gopal.
Hi,
Hi.
Pallavi.
Hi,
Hi,
Pallavi. Great to
glad
see you.
same here, same here. And it was a lovely session. I realized that social capital is much ahead than just transactional things that I've been focusing on. And I got the one major takeaway is like you be part of as many communities beyond the current role or function that you're leading. That's a takeaway for me, and that was amazing session. Thank you so much. I love to see both of you together.
Thank you so much. We will see you soon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Coming soon, Kairos 3.
Yes, hopefully. Yes, yes. Thank you,
Thank you,
Babu.
Babu. Yes, Swati, and then Vijay.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for this session. I think at this stage, for me personally, this resonates a lot. Thanks, Gopal and Neetu. So for me, the story was I moved from India to Singapore a few years back and leaving behind 10 plus years of experience and moving to a new country. I think it leaves you very unmoved. And you really, that's exactly, I think the problem was finding something through social capital. I felt like I was a nobody and building an identity and, the imposter syndrome. And because I've had some not so great interactions about how I could fit into the job market here, and they just say that it's a small market and you really don't have those kind of, volumes. But I think what happens beyond work is you start questioning, what your identity needs to become, rather than, oh, I have these experiences, but now I'm starting to reframe to say, well, what do I need to do to fit in? So I think it's a bit of ego deaths, and I think that is important. Part of, when you do the social capital exercises, put yourself out there, turn up, be consistent, like you said, and go in with the mindset of giving. So and learning and curiosity, Neetu, which you mentioned was so apt. So I have a few networks. I turn up at a lot of these colleges. They offer you public speaking seminars you can attend as an audience, and you learn so much. NTU, NUS, and all that. They have a great, information gathering sessions. So yeah, it's a slow journey, but I think it's a great way to learn more about yourself through social capital. You learn more about yourself. Thank you.
Swati, if you can message
Thank you.
me, I don't know if you're part of the group, you should definitely join Portfolio Careers in Asia group if you're not part of that.
Okay.
There is a beautiful, vibrant community for portfolio careerists.
Nice.
I'll be more than happy to introduce you. And they keep doing weekly, bi-weekly, monthly meetups, which you will find a lot of value.
And I think this is bridging happening here.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Thank you so much. I'm glad I spoke up. Portfolio Careers Group. Yeah, I think we're connected on LinkedIn as well, Gopal. So I will reach out.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Vijay.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Hi.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Hi, Neetu. Hello, Gopal.
Hi.
First of all, thank you for this session. Few things obviously resonate with me. I would take mainly two words. One thing Neetu mentioned about the bubble. So if I talk about my career or my professional journey, then somewhere I felt like I was in a bubble for almost 14 years. And now since last 2 months, where I have switched my career, actually there is career shift.
Okay.
So now I feel like I was literally in a bubble where my mindset was completely, I would say, subconsciously being driven or being wired by a group of people with similar mindset. So at some point, I would say I was not growing, I was stuck, and I was just thinking in a linear direction. But as soon as I took a decision, which of course kind of risk and bold decision, but as soon as I took that decision, since last 2 months, started a new venture. Actually, I started my photography journey as a startup. So now I am a part of some networking communities, and there I feel that I literally feel inferior sometimes because of that bubble or 14 years of mindset. I see that how people are doing business, how they are treating each other in terms of relationship. The whole thing is about this social connect, which we are discussing since last 1 hour. So I started feeling inferior for almost a month, and now I feel connected with those people because earlier again there was some belief with me that senior people are not accessible, the exercise which we're going through. I have one story that one of the mutual fund investor who is actually my financial advisor right now, that was a person whom I met almost a year ago. And the first impression he created for me, we met in a cafe in a networking meeting, a coffee table meet. And the personality the person carrying was, I felt that I will hardly be able to reach out to this person for at least one meeting because the aura he was delivering in that room, the rapport he has in this industry. And somehow it was a coffee table. Then I connected with him. There was one-to-one meet, and now he's the person whom I am meeting almost twice a week, having 2 to 3 hours of tea time. And he became actually a friend of mine. A couple of months ago, when I was suffering from my health issues, he was there who dropped me to the hospital in his car. That was all because of this, I think, maybe this social network or the social
Capital.
capital which we are, yeah, social capital which we are discussing. And the other word or point I would want to make or put here is visibility. That is, people thinks of me, the visibility which I have created, which I'm trying to create, and of course, other people have created that visibility. Same way, like the person which I am talking about, it is his visibility that even he is not part of this group right now. I am thinking about him. So yeah, that is definitely there when you have social capital, then you create that visibility that they think of you, maybe at some point, any help that you're looking for, or maybe work. It can be work, it can be personal help, or it can be just a gossip, you are part of it. But yeah, that's there. And through that, it creates a trust, and of course, it helps you in the work. So I feel
Great.
like this was definitely helpful, and moving forward, I'll have to apply this in my professional career. And the exercise about finding capital type and 2, 3 real names, I tried, but it was really powerful exercise. And I thought that this session will end up like a Saturday light evening, but now it become a heavy evening for me because I'll sleep with that exercise. So thank you for that. Really,
Thank
thank
you
you,
so
Gopal,
much
and
for
thank you,
sharing
everyone.
that. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll talk more about this next week.
great.
And yes, I'm sitting in the place where I'm going to meet Gopal next week. Gopal, see you.
Okay. Thank you. Manisha,
All
over to
right.
you, please,
Yeah.
anything. And Kuvam.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Gopal, Neetu, and like everyone who joined us. It was a great session. It also reminded me of like one missed opportunity, I think, that I was in the same room with a professor of ours, and he's essentially called the CEO Whisperer in the USA because he has a lot of that, I would say, C-suite network. And he had actively reached out to me and he'd been like, hey, how are you? What class are you in? And all of that. And my brain just went, okay, like I can talk to this person, but he's probably not going to remember me. Like, is there a point in me, like, just sitting here and explaining my entire life story? So I think the session reminded me of that, and I might just end up emailing him today and being like, hey, do you remember?
Great. No, it's all the beliefs. I think the first point is that just to reflect on the beliefs we have built for ourselves. And I think it's the starting point. Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone for joining us. We'll also share a recording of the session in case you want to go back and look at certain things. And looking forward to seeing you guys in the next session as well, whenever that happens. See you.
All
All
right.
the very
Thank you.
best. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.